there was just 2 days ago, this is kind of breaking news, actually, 3 days ago, an article in the Dallas Morning News. They do a really good job reporting on Fairview. And the title of the article was Fairview Mayor Pleads with Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to avoid a lawsuit. The mayor said he'd go to Utah if it means he can meet with church leaders about the height of the proposed McKinney, Texas temple. Now, why should someone involved in a very important negotiation have to go somewhere to talk to somebody that is a decision maker? This has been the problem the whole time. And I think this happens in almost every other city that we've dealt with. The lawyers are the ones on the ground interacting with the elected city officials, town officials, and nobody else. An area rep may make a statement or talk to them. A stake president may talk to them. But like Mayor Henry Lessner of Fairview, he's like, well, I want to talk to somebody who can make a decision. I want to run it up the chain. Why won't someone like that come to my town, look me in the eye, shake my hand, and we talk this through? Of course, we all know the answer, right? In fact, I always laugh in all the different towns. They say, well, maybe we can write a letter. Is there an address we could write to Salt Lake? We're like, no, not even a faithful member can write a letter. If you do, it trickles back down to your local leader so they can deal with you, right? So this was very interesting, this article. Here is a picture of the first proposed McKinney, Texas temple, 173 feet, 44,000 square feet footprint there, compromise, a mediation, much smaller, 120, but still doesn't meet the zoning codes. And now the town is being threatened by a lawsuit, which is why that title says he'd like to talk to somebody. Maybe if they talk, they can avoid this. If they can each explain to each other, what's going on, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, especially among the faithful LDS. So the mayor put out this statement, and this statement was quoted in the Dallas Morning News, but I happened to get the statement hot off the presses right when he gave it. And I'm just going to read this because this is almost a statement that anybody in any of these towns could have made. They've all expressed these kind of sentiments to all of us that watch, the temple building. So the mayor says, as you might have read about a month ago in the media, the local attorneys representing the LDS Church have again threatened to sue the town of Fairview. Insert any town's name there, right? This just happens to be Fairview. And take this temple building back to the original 65-foot building height. That's the walls, with a spire on top reaching up to 174-foot height. The agreement that was made between the town and the church in November 2024 was for the LDS folks to bring the mediated smaller building design plans with a 35-foot building height and a tower going up to 120 feet through our planning department in mid-January. And we've talked about this, the democratic process of taking it to planning and zoning and taking it to the town council. This mediated plan was preliminary and unanimously determined to be acceptable to our council. He's explaining again what happened. The new plan should have gone before our Planning and Zoning Commission in February and on to the council in March. Instead, the church has not submitted the new plan, but instead chose to again threaten the town with a lawsuit. The town is working to get this process back on track, which is what they want to do. And again, the mayor said, we may have agreed in mediation, but we can't control our citizens' opinion, what a planning and zoning board might vote for. They don't have that kind of control like the church. You can just say, do this, think this way, and the members fall in line. He goes on to say, one thing that I am asking for is to have a meeting with someone from the LDS Church in Salt Lake who is a decision maker. Like you would think in any negotiation, right? If Walmart comes to your town and wants to build, they're probably going to send somebody pretty important to talk to your citizens, talk to your town council, talk to your mayor. And that's respectful to do that. That shows how you value the process, you value the town. And if the temple truly is the most important building, as they keep saying, why are they not sending a most important person to try to talk to everybody? That's my thought there. Let's see, who wants to talk to someone who is a decision maker. As the highest elected official in Fairview, I have never met with any decision maker from the church. I have only met and talked with LDS attorneys. And it's interesting because the church keeps putting out in all their statements, they won't meet with our attorneys. Our attorneys have asked to meet one-on-one. They keep turning down a meeting with our attorneys. And the mayor is saying, we've talked to your attorneys. No offense, RFM. We would like to talk to some of the decision makers that are higher up in this important process. If they will not come to Fairview, says the mayor, I am happy to go to Salt Lake City for a meeting. He's happy to go to the source. If they're not going to come to him, he will go to them. I am not aware of anyone in the LDS decision-making hierarchy in Salt Lake City ever coming to Fairview to talk with any of our community leaders. And he's not wrong. No one has come. The area rep is there representing. The stake president weighs in. The attorneys talk. But there has not been anyone else who would be considered a decision maker that is addressed any of the elected officials or the town, anybody in Fairview. All right, let's continue reading. It has been almost a year since the LDS Church surprised our community with their plan to build a gigantic building on the residential side of our town. It is time that the LDS decision makers learn about our town. And that actually is one thing they really want to do. They want to explain Fairview to the church so the church can understand who they are. And that is a legitimate request, I think. We want to explain they learn about our town, why we think it's special, why thousands of our residents are so passionate about wanting the LDS Church to follow our zoning laws, and the efforts made over the years to protect our environment and the character of our town. So he's just asking for a chance to explain Fairview to the LDS Church and then to arrive at an agreement. His final thought is, I am ready to travel to Salt Lake to meet with someone who is a decision maker in the LDS hierarchy to see if we can come to a common understanding that will avoid a lawsuit. Henry Lessner, Mayor, Town of Fairview, Texas. And I have a little graphic there where Henry Lessner is on an airplane and he says Salt Lake City or bust. So he's willing to do that. Let's look each other in the eye. Let's shake a hand. Let's sit down. Let's talk this over. Do you guys have any thoughts about this statement and his request to meet with somebody, even being willing to come to Salt Lake City?
Well, it makes sense he wants to talk to somebody, but you know something? I think it makes more sense and it's politically savvy for him to make this a public statement, because now he's putting out there his version of the way things went down, and that he's never been able to talk to a decision maker and everything about the church. And we had this deal and the church welched on the deal. And sorry to all our Welsh listeners, but they welched on the deal. And now, now we're trying to get it back on track, because here they're going to try and sue us, and I'll go to Salt Lake City. I'm so committed. I think that is a very good move as a public statement. And the fact it's public, I don't know, maybe it'll get the church to move on it. Maybe they'll actually let him talk to somebody. But from their point of view, the mayor of Fairview and the president of the church, or even whoever the heck who is the ultimate decision maker? It's got to be President Nelson.
I don't even know that. I think it's God. I mean, that's what they keep telling all the residents. God chose the site. God chose the design, the height of the steeple. I think it's God.
Well, he'll have to travel to Salt Lake to meet with God.
He will.
Because that's where God lives.
That's where he dwells. Yes, in the house of the Lord.
So I think this is politically speaking, I think this is a very good move on the mayor's part.
The only thing I'm sitting there thinking, if the church takes this to court, let's say they win. Let's say the highest of the courts is just going to come down in the position that it does not matter. It does not matter what point you try to argue. Religions have full ability to do whatever the hell they want, whenever they want. You will bankrupt in part this city, right? They'll spend umpteen, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not million, $1 million or $2. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That you will bankrupt the city. Could the church, when the whole thing is said and done, let's say the church takes it to court, they win, city spends $1 million, whatever, to handle the proceedings. And then could the church just back out and go, you know what, on second thought, we don't want to build it all in your town? Because what the city services will have, the way the city would have to operate is it would then have to cut cost, and this wouldn't be the kind of city that the church would want to be. And when you guys were talking, I put into AI art, I asked it to show me an LDS temple with tons of homeless people around. If the city was sort of not the greatest place to be anymore, does the church want its temples to be in a place? And how would the rest of the citizens react forever towards the church, towards this temple, if they do this whole act of suing the city, costing the city, whatever it is, millions of dollars, and then the city ends up losing in the end. I think this is not going to be good no matter where it goes.
I think that's a great insight. And I think the church has to worry not only about what non-members are saying, but even what members are saying. Is that right, Rebecca?
That's it. And that segues right into my next section here. And really, Bill, you do not need to use AI to generate tent cities around a temple. If you go downtown Salt Lake, I was just there last week, that's what's happening. It's such a juxtaposition. It's actually horrifying. So you're right on point here, RFM. What do faithful LDS think? And I've been monitoring this and all the temples, and part of that is looking to see what the faithful think by reading social media, going on temple support sites, things like that. And I have definitely seen a shift as things just kind of drag on. And even in Fairview, I have seen a shift. So I'm just going to read a couple of these because I think it's really interesting. And I keep saying we podcast, it's not post-Mormon. We're also podcasting for faithful members who are collateral damage in all of these processes, because a lot of them are having to do things and act in ways to so-called support the temple that they normally wouldn't. And they're starting to see it, and some vocally voice it. So here's somebody on faithful social media who said, used to be the church would bend over backwards to be a good neighbor. They say that all the time. I want to be a good neighbor, and make sure things were copacetic behind the scenes before presenting formal plans that were almost certainly going to cause contention. It's like the 11th, 12th, and 13th articles of faith are being reinterpreted so we can get our way because of religious freedom and the so-called religious oppression in the United States. I'm active, a regular temple worker of more than a decade, and I really care much more about showing my neighbor love, compassion, and understanding to aid in their conversion and salvation, not in fulfilling some architect's plan that clearly violated existing zoning laws. I mean, how many will turn missionaries away because of this? Is this contention worth one soul missing out on the fullness of the gospel?
Great question.
This person sees it, right? A missionary in Cody, a missionary in Heber, a missionary in Fairview, a missionary in Lone Mountain. It's going to be a tough road if you open that and read that as your call.
Apparently the answer is a lot, because this contention is worth a lot of souls missing out on the fullness of the gospel.
Yeah. And so I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then, and this was a thread that had maybe 100 comments, and almost everyone seemed to have just a little nuance to it, or confusion, or maybe this has gone on long enough. Here's some other ones. I agree. I'm confident God doesn't care how tall a temple is. He cares about what happens inside, as stated by Elder Budnar and President Nelson.
Yes. In other words, the leaders of the church say it doesn't matter how high the temple is, but somehow there's this new doctrine.
There's a new doctrine. This is a waste of time. Just lower the height. These are faithful people saying this. Amen. Whatever side of the issue one comes down on, the objective truth is that the church's goodwill has taken a huge hit for no clear upside. Would have been far better to simply propose a more realistic design up front. Right? One that fits in with the zoning codes. Indeed, this isn't the Middle Ages. We do not need towering cathedrals as flexes of wealth and power.
Wow.
I'm telling you, the faithful get it. They really do, because these are our friends and our family.
Faithful member saying this.
Yeah, this is from a very faithful Reddit site.
Wow.
You could make a temple look like a Soviet apartment building, and it would not change what happens inside. Again, stated by Bednar and President Nelson over and over. It's what is inside that matters.
It's like the new Brussels temple.
Like Brussels, exactly.
Soviet apartment building.
If that ever gets built with its rooftop garden. Another person says, I can't upvote this enough. So many people saying this is religious discrimination because we're not provided an exemption. The facts are that another church was granted an exemption and they didn't build it. Talking about that bell tower again. Mm-hmm. The fact that our building is already the tallest, their stake center, just shows that there is no religious discrimination. And someone else says, just dust your feet and build it outside the city limits or in a nearby town that sees the benefit of having a temple. So that's kind of a backhanded way. But I was very surprised. And again, as I monitor this throughout the last year, it's really trending this direction. Mm-hmm. Of course, then you have people like this who say, good, they should take Fairview to court. They should win. They should go back to the original blueprint, the much taller one. The church has compromised a lot for this temple, only for the city of Fairview to keep backing out and not argue in good faith. This isn't an issue of the church being a bully. Misinformed members here, and quite frankly, ex or non-members cosplaying as faithful members. So this person can't even fathom that a faithful member might have a more charitable view of the whole situation. This person is accusing those, comments that I just read of being ex-Mormons or non-members.
It's the no true Mormon fallacy.
I think that's what it is. Let's see, would have people believe the church shouldn't just roll on its back and leave. They've done absolutely nothing wrong. This is religious liberty issue that needs to be fought tooth and nail in the courts, and it looks like it will be. The mayor and the city council of Fairview screwed around, were openly hostile and biased. Now they can find out the consequences of their actions. So, that point of view still exists too, but I am extremely encouraged to see the other point of view. So we'll see. The mayor wants to come to Salt Lake and he wants to talk to somebody. And I know that I think is going to be doing interviews with different news sources about this offer to come to Salt Lake. And for all we know, he may just come out here. Who knows? He could tour the newly opened section of Temple Square, and he could sit in the church office building and see if anybody would come down and talk to him. Maybe he could have lunch with Aaron Sherinian. Anything could happen. It's going to be really interesting to watch. Any final thoughts on Fairview before I move on to Lone Mountain?
Have you thought about reaching out to him for an interview?
The stuff that I do is under wraps and I cannot comment right now.
That's a definite yes.
I'm so coy about things, aren't I? That's right. Any final thoughts on Fairview, Bill?
No, I'm just disgusted.
Yeah, I know.
Watching the previous story and this one.
Exactly. When you put it all together like that, that's what I mean. They all kind of flow into each other. And it's just this hot mess of, oh, come on, guys, we can do better.